Grid. Anyone fancy the Turkish Grand Prix today? I know I do. Welcome along to the 8th. In this 2020 season, and this could be the day that the driver's title is decided as well. We're here in Istanbul, the largest population in Europe. It ranks as the world's 15th most populated city, close to 16 million inhabitants. This track, the first Turkish Grand Prix since 2000. Sergio Perez, with his highest ever grid start, starts third. Alex Albon equals his best grid start. It's fifth for Daniel Ricciardo for the second race in a row. Sixth for Lewis Hamilton. Last time he started there, he won. Seventh for Esteban Ocon at Renault. Kimi Raikkonen starts eighth, and the first time he got into Q3 this season. Valtteri Bottas, his worst qualifying since Spa 2017, starts ninth, alongside Antonio Giovinazzi, who crashed on his way to the grid. Sebastian Vettel starts 11th. Alongside Charles Leclerc, out-qualified him for the first time in 11 races.
Looking forward to this race, I think there are 20 who are not quite so sure about it, sitting in the Formula One cars. It is going to be crazy.
They wanted to change the power unit for Pierre Gasly's car, so they took the car apart, then they changed their mind and said, no, we don't want to change it. But the car was so heavily dismantled by that stage, the FIA...
They do have to wait for the entire pack to clear through into the first corner before they're allowed away. But as you say, they won't get caught up in too many shenanigans. Let's hope it's not too successful starting in the pit lane, otherwise they'll all want to be there next time, knowing form.
It's a bit too smooth, it really is. Now, you saw the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors' Championship tables. Mercedes have sealed the Constructors' Championship for a record 7th successive season. The Drivers' title could be won today, but Valtteri Bottas has to finish at least 6th to keep that title race alive. There we can see the issue that the front row, second and third row, are going to have. 10 for the first time this season as well. There is going to be a high chance of the safety car coming out at the end of this first lap. Let's keep our fingers crossed that we all get through safely. It's the Turkish Grand Prix. It's lights out and away we go. And they are crawling off the line, especially Max Verstappen. Hamilton, though, gets a really good start, passes 2 cars already. Stroll is in the lead, going into turn 1 ahead of his teammate, Sergio.
Verstappen is on his back foot. He's lost a lot of ground. Brilliant start for Racing Point.
So Stroll leads Perez, and there going wide is Lewis Hamilton, just to get past the Mercedes.
So Lewis had a lock-up of his brakes into turn 9, had no confidence at the next braking zone in turn 12, and a sitting duck there, wasn't he? The Mercedes will not fire up its tyres and give the drivers any confidence, any grip, under braking, under traction. Turn in. They're at sea, literally.
Valtteri Bottas down to 18th. He's only got Ocon and...
The point in letting these cars go even faster down the straight.
Oh, Max Verstappen just got off the track.
On the
very
curb.
wet, on the curb, had no grip whatsoever, and he's lost a bit of time.
Yeah, on the curb was Max Verstappen.
Grip whatsoever. Albon is passed by Hamilton, but watch the 2 Renaults here, Ricciardo and Ocon. And does Ocon get tagged? Well, yeah, Ricciardo has to avoid Hamilton and then tags his teammate.
Yeah, Hamilton squeezing up the inside, and then that was it. 3 into 2 doesn't go. And Verstappen doing well to sort of stay ahead of the Red Bull battle there, because, well, both Red Bulls just seem to cancel.
World champion for a 4th year in a row and for a 7th time overall if it finishes the way it is at the moment.
So Verstappen does get straight back onto the gearbox of the Ferrari, but the Racing Points are a long way down the road. Verstappen needs to clear this Ferrari. PDQ.
Lance Stroll.
Cheers for Sebastian Vettel and the chasing Red Bull, just to underline the gaps Karun was talking about. Mercedes with Lewis Hamilton still not able just to switch those tyres on. They think that will come soon. It's the tyre to be on is the full wet at the moment. The intermediate not working for anyone yet, but that will change in a few laps.
The only 2 cars out there on intermediates that I can see are George Russell. It's really challenging to find a window. You've got to push him into a mistake through an exit, push him to get on the throttle a touch too early.
You can send one
forward there, keeping it on the road. But anybody who's gone for really high tyre pressures to get initial early grip, if we do run into a drier track, they might take a bit of a penalty for that and not stick a second out of Stroll's lead, but it remains at 4.9.
Ted, to you.
Stroll's wet tyres starting to get a little bit hot. He's moving to the left-hand side, the wet side of the start-finish line as he comes by just to cool the tyres. So Lance already thinking about a few...
Lane, because it's super slippery on the shiny concrete that's in there as well. So that's why you'll see a dry zone when they finally make it to the pit garage.
Charles Leclerc comes out behind Esteban Ocon, down in 19th place. Ocon the only other driver to be into the pit so far. And after that incident with Valtteri Bottas on lap 1, Bottas wants an early pit stop as well.
Yeah, it is. And I wonder if this is the point where, you know, I said if you put a lot of pressure in to give yourself early grip, whether your tyre starts to balloon. And
is it time for a bit of activity in the pit lane, I wonder? Hamilton with the fastest lap so far, but Leclerc absolutely flying on those intermediate tyres.
It is inters, but the tyres are still going, you know, so it's pointless for me right now.
Well, he could, and Lance Stroll still 5 seconds or so ahead of his teammate Sergio Perez.
Great first sector from Max Verstappen. Now he's got some clear air. This is his chance. It's going to be an overcut if he can make it happen up against Sebastian Vettel. Stay out longer, go faster, and then make your pit stop later is the overcut.
Pitted yet, and the speed of the pits is good enough to get Stroll in and out ahead of Ricciardo. The wets, and he's just taken a fastest lap in this race of a 1:51.0.
And remember quali yesterday.
That's George Russell here. Russell going wide, making it very easy for Leclerc, who is very much enjoying these conditions, as now Lewis Hamilton goes purple through the first sector. He's on the wet weather tyres, and a significant improvement as the track now really starting to dry out in places and giving these drivers the grip that they would like.
5 when Verstappen's doing 48. They've got to get Verstappen in onto the intermediates. They have to. Hamilton's flying. The next thing is he'll actually be undercutting Verstappen.
Absolutely. Lewis Verstappen, though, has got about 2/3 of the lap to go before he can make his pit stop. Hamilton is now right on the button, puts the brakes on and avoids Sebastian Vettel. He was sliding towards the scene of the Ferrari. Ted, are you watching Verstappen?
I am. It's just beneath me. It needs to be absolutely perfect. It's been too long. What's going on?
Head of Vettel, because it would have put him behind Hamilton otherwise. So well done, Red Bull. And this has changed the pace of the race again. And look how close they are to Sergio Perez.
Sergio Perez's slow pit stop has brought him back into the clutches of Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton as well.
Should have the high ground for the last corner. Now he couldn't find any traction. We saw the Ferrari locking up. You could see darker lines in the track, and Vettel gets away with it.
That just reminded me of Hamilton and Button back in 2010, going through the end of the lap, and Hamilton getting past Button into this corner here, but that was in the dry. Hamilton might have done it in the dry, but against Sebastian Vettel in the wet, he was...
If Michael Massey will be looking at what is up on the screen now, a virtual safety car, which just puts everybody into a holding pattern.
Right, 500
from Matt, because he didn't cross the white line either coming out of the pits.
Final one of those quadruple. I think he's been replaced.
Been replaced, yeah.
This weekend. I'm just looking at Verstappen there, perilously close to that white line.
I think they were having a look at it, but he definitely didn't cross it, did he? I didn't see at any point that he crossed it.
What happens to these tyre pressures? What happens to this tyre temperature? How quickly can you light them up of turn 6? I'm glad it said virtual safety car ending, and then we saw the green light on the screen, because you wouldn't notice it just watching the cars there. They couldn't immediately put the power down to the way that they would want, and Sebastian Vettel does seem to be struggling a little bit more than Lewis Hamilton. Obviously that DAS system on the Mercedes-Benz does help with tyre warm-up in these sort of conditions.
Out of position for turn 11.
We've had 4 different leaders in the first 12 at the end of this race, and this is what happened to Lewis Hamilton as he just backed out of the movement as well. And here comes Lewis Hamilton. Would anyone fancy the Sebastian Vettel? But first you don't succeed, try again.
Yeah, he's got extra. It's like when Verstappen was behind Vettel, wasn't it? He had, and look, Albon is through as well. So Albon has passed the Ferrari on this lap.
Yeah. Verstappen, Albon, Vettel, Hamilton, Ricciardo, Sainz, Leclerc now with the new fastest lap. Ted, very quickly to you.
You mentioned Kevin Magnussen doing well, holding 10th position, but he's holding up a huge, considering job offers or opportunities next year. Checo after that second Red Bull. Well, Checo's doing the best for his team at the moment. That's what they want.
Yes, he is driving beautifully for Racing Point. Red Bull in their 300th Grand Prix this weekend, currently 3rd and 4th.
Somebody's looped it in the front.
Goes wide and spins as well. He got caught up behind the rear wing of Sergio Perez, and that has proved very costly indeed. He's avoided the barriers, but his teammate Alex Albon now cruises past and goes into 3rd place. And Verstappen
here lost some downforce in what is a proper turn.
And his punishment for it.
I was grimacing as he pulled back on the track, just over the top of that blind crest. Racing points. Certainly one of them, but they've got a nice formation going there with Perez as the rear gunner.
As it stands, Martin, we could be on course for you speaking to a first-time winner in Formula One this afternoon.
I'm losing so much time, I just can't get by, man.
You've got to be loose, we can see that. Just keep doing what you can do.
Albon skips past, could skip past Sergio Perez, and reminds Red Bull that he's in the seat at the moment and would quite like it for next year as well.
Absolutely, as another fastest lap for Alex Albon there, and he's ninth.
Investigation for crossing the line at the pit exit. I wonder, on his second trip into the pits, has he come out and crossed that line, because the stewards are now looking at him. He's going to want to forget.
At least his third spin today, isn't it?
He is going to want to forget this. Bits of rubber flying off the tyres in front as well. They're all going to need a good bath at the end of this race. And we're on lap 20. That's not the way it's turned out. And we've been watching Lance Stroll out in the lead of this race for pretty much all of it. We've had 4 different leaders, but Stroll has been the one out in the lead for the most amount of laps. His gap, 5.1 seconds, as once again his teammate Sergio Perez goes a second faster on that previous lap.
Interesting, we just saw
It is now getting even more fascinating as we saw Max Verstappen going off the track. It's so wet in places, you couldn't possibly think about slick tyres, but it's a dry line is forming in other places where the intermediate tyres are not enjoying this very much. It's,
I agree.
you know, does he approach with caution, or does he think, no, this is my audition for the seat next year at Red Bull. This is my chance to show everybody that I should be in that seat.
It is. Definitely is. And Christian Horner's been saying, just give us something to hang, on, keeping you for next year, Alex. And, we want to keep you. It's his seat to...
There's Sergio Perez. There is Alex Albon. And a few laps ago, you wouldn't have seen those 3 cars on the same straight going into turn 7. Meanwhile...
Lap ago is now to 3.7, I think, Crofty. But, yeah, Seb has got pace in that Ferrari compared to Hamilton at the moment. But Daniel Ricciardo also, let's have a word for him. P6 going well in the Renault, further down the road, 10 seconds further down the road than Vettel and Hamilton.
On George Russell, 11th place up for grabs with this move. And he sends one down the inside, bounces off the Williams and manages to squeeze himself up to 11th.
Yeah, saw that.
Sure, he could do much more to control the car than he really tried to, but George is right, he was forced off the road.
I'd much rather so. Looks like a rally car sitting there. Look at the crash helmet. Yeah. Extraordinary. You can certainly see all the aero going over the cockpit, can't you? How it works around the crash helmet and the halo down the side of the car a little bit. It's great information for the aero guys at Grubby.
Race, whilst important, might not be the critical stage of the race, but Lando Norris wants to get past the Haas, doesn't he? And Kevin Magnussen really struggling out of that slow right-hand corner, out of turn 7 through turn 8. Norris in
wheel a little bit too tight, but it's so easy to do when you're really pushing the limits of retardation.
To remind you, if you're just joining us, the Lewis Hamilton in 5th place at the moment, and Valtteri Bottas down in 17th.
Intermediates on to put the slick tyres on, which is just going to go everywhere. That's why the team has...
become slicks if you can take them far enough. The problem is you run out of tread, you run out of meat on the top of the tyre, and you start losing a lot of temperature.
And guess what? To go with this drying track...
Interestingly, he's still trying to find a bit of damp away from the racing line.
Intermediate, because the slick tyres aren't going to fire up. That's what Hamilton has come back on the radio and said to Pete Bonington. Maybe we should think about that and jump this queue, because they put on new inters. They could bring themselves into play, because you may never get...
in front of Charles Leclerc, or at least isn't going to be too far behind Charles Leclerc. This might be a good time to pit Hamilton, with Leclerc pitting as well. We shall see. A softer compound, because you're not, with the harder compounds and the slick tyres, you're just not generating the temperature to give you grip as well. Kimi Raikkonen also came into the pits, and he's gone back out again on the intermediate tyres. And he's thinking, maybe I should just stay out there into the podium places now, Lewis Hamilton. And as you can see, less than 4 seconds behind Sergio Perez. And Perez, as I mentioned, now getting very close to his teammate Lance Stroll. Stroll, we've heard on the radio saying there's just no grip and I'd like to box, and the team saying no, stay out there. What do they do now?
The fifth youngest pole sitter.
To be honest, we didn't hear from him. If they don't bring Lance Stroll in now, Sebastian Vettel could well catch him, and they are going to bring Lance Stroll in now, because I think that the pit wall has looked at this and said, no, we're losing so much time to Vettel in 5th place. If we don't pit him now, the Ferrari is going to overtake us.
And pitting is Stroll as if we do go to slicks, as if the next transition, that wins him back his pit stop effectively, doesn't it?
Here goes Hamilton on Sergio Perez. He's got DRS. Hamilton is going to make a move into turn 12. Lewis of this race. His voice now has completely changed.
Interesting point though, isn't it? Because you go out to what is almost slick conditions, and what happens with a fresh tyre, you start sliding across surfaces like the
What
are you going to do with this, Charles? You've got to get it slowed down somehow. There's a bit of grip. There's a bit of grip in the braking area now. Track's beginning to come to the drivers, those that have got any meat on their tyres.
Those that have kept out there and saved themselves another pit stop. They keep coming back and trying to get this place once more, and he goes wheel to wheel and gets back past Sebastian Vettel. Charles Leclerc ahead of Max Verstappen, waiting to pick up the scraps. Stroll has fallen back behind Charles Leclerc. The two Ferraris now ahead of the one-time race leader, and so there's Alex Albon in the picture. Not
Hamilton just lapping Gasly in front of me, but I can't see that rain in the distance. We'll see if it happens.
Charles Leclerc is now ahead of Sebastian Vettel. He's got his teammate down into turns. Oh, there's Romain Grosjean and Nicholas Latifi tangling as
hot, maybe worn intermediates are the cure to Mercedes not being able to get any heat.
Looks like it's getting darker. Is there more rain?
There is a risk of it. Copy is getting darker.
Very, very much getting darker. My mind does go back to Lewis.
You nearly crashed into me.
Yeah, they avoided each other. Fortunately, Carlos Sainz did get ahead.
He weren't there as nearly.
They're leaving Perez out there so they can make absolutely the right call. But when do you blink? Here's Lewis Hamilton, blue flags ahead.
Just this set of tyres is Lewis Hamilton, and clearly in a nice groove. It'll be if he has to go offline with them, and he could have one of those horrible, silly little spins that, as I say, your only crime is actually turning the steering wheel trying to go into a corner. But at the moment, Hamilton is now a position his dad, the World Rally Champion, would be rather more accustomed to.
Isn't it great to have a race, Martin, where it swung around so much throughout the course of this race? Looked so good from Racing Point, didn't it, in the early stages? Now, if they come away with a podium, they'll...
Radio I've just listened to, by the way. Lewis Hamilton has come on and said Valtteri's got blue flags.
Valtteri, he's been around at least 4 times, hasn't he? He's got to get out of the way now. Turn. So he's had to go offline to let Lewis through. Drop tyre temperature.
Lap times now at the start of the lap times now that are slower than I think.
That's Verstappen saying
not
he's ready.
Not or now ready for slicks.
Well,
there's a half a chance if it doesn't rain, they might all come in for slicks, because if you can fire some slicks up, you'll find 10 seconds a lap.
And the thing is, Ted, they were forecasting a bit of rain. Cloud update?
Still there, but not dropping anything. It's still so wet on the pit straight. The last corner and the first corner are still pretty wet.
Tyres, and he can't get the slick tyres on to replace it because it's still too wet.
They had them.
Bottas down in 15th. Well, there's still an awful lot to play for here, and very much...
And dries on lap 10. Hamilton put his on lap 8. And Bottas's were on from lap 7. And his burned out completely, didn't they? So it tells you how close to the edge Lewis Hamilton must be with his tyres. He needs to stay very much on the racing line.
Someone's had a moment down at